The RFR Mandalorian After Show.
How many of you about soiled yourselves when you saw that the Mando was landing in Mos Eisley?
Oh my God! Fist pump.
Wait a minute? Is that fan service? I don't know anymore. It feels good to be serviced once in a while, doesn't it?
Oh, it feels so good.
Everybody else feels serviced.
Feel serviced.
I did.
Happy endings.
I can leave a big tip.
I did by this episode. Hey, welcome back to Rebel Force Radio's Mandalorian After Show. So glad to be with you on this Friday night as we take a look at the latest episode of The Mandalorian. Chapter 5, The Gunslinger. And lots to talk about. You know, we're getting to the point where The Mandalorian is becoming a really character with a lot of facets, you know, despite the fact that, you know, he's a guy that does everything with a mask on. I think that, I just think Pedro Pascal is just doing such an amazing job just in embodying this character, and I think the character has a lot of complexities, and you know, the thing about him is that he keeps me guessing all the time. There's moments when I think that he's just going to be just a, you know, cold-blooded killer and just, you know, blow someone away, but then he kind of surprises me, so he keeps going back and forth. I mean, it seems like he was using a lot of restraint, especially with this Toro guy. But I also feel like in a lot of ways he was staying a step ahead of him. But anyway, so much to talk about. And we've got quite a group here this week on the Mandalorian After Show, starting, of course, with my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Mandomaniacs. The Mandomaniacs are together again. And we have a flagon of spotchka. Whatever they were eating.
Flagon? Was it a flagon? It was a flagon.
Flagon of spotchka? Somebody want a flagon of spotchka? Well, I know somebody who does. And that's, how do we always say that? My brother in real life, your brother in the force?
Your brother
Billy
in
Mack.
the flesh, my brother in the force, Billy Mack.
That's how that works.
That's...
There he is. And
yeah,
he brought his
over
own
the shoulder.
spotchka.
Got my own
No.
spotchka.
He brought, it's BYOS. Bring your own spotchka.
We also have along
we
for
do
the
have
ride...
flagons.
Flagons?
We have flagons, but you got to
Full
bring your own
flagons.
spotchka. That's right.
Joining us also this week on the After Show is a good friend of ours and a longtime supporter of Rebel Force Radio, and also a decorated member of our Patreon group. Mr. Matt Rashid is joining us. So welcome
hey guys,
to
thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a good time. Good time to talk. And since we do record this show live and take your calls, we'll throw the number up on the screen here. So get in the queue, 708-866-1737. That's 708-866-1737. Your chance to sound off. And, you know, look, we're going to take the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And I have to say that there have been some comments online. Luckily, I was able, due to the distractions of the day job, to avoid really being online at all until after I had a chance to watch the episode myself. And then I'm seeing people, you know, this wasn't my favorite. I don't know about this episode. So we're going to get into the nuts and bolts and why maybe people might have been somewhat disappointed with this. It certainly didn't disappoint me, and I'll give you the stats here as we look at the tail of the tape. Mandalorian episode... Well, I should say chapter. The episode thing gets us into trouble every time, you know. It's a Star Wars thing. This is Chapter 5, The Gunslinger. We're still, of course, in Season 1. This is the 5th episode of the series. The first that we're seeing written by Star Wars TV veteran Dave Filoni. Also directed by Dave Filoni. He also directed the pilot, the first... I don't even know if they call it a pilot. When it's a streaming show and they already have committed to 8 episodes, I guess you can hardly call it a pilot, but the first episode.
Premiere.
The premiere.
The series premiere. Chapter 1.
But anyway, so Dave not only directed this episode, but he also wrote it as well. And the original air date, stream date for this, December 6, 2019, for those of you listening to it in the future. And it had a running time of 30 minutes. So this was a shorter episode. And as I've said in previous after shows, despite these relatively short, for this type of dramatic series, action adventure series, they managed to pack so much into it. The time sort of it goes fast in some sense and it stands still in other sense. I never feel shortchanged. I think that's the thing that I come away with each and every one of these episodes feeling that I got. I can always go for a little bit more, but I never feel as though I didn't get enough. Bill, what about you? As far as the runtime on these episodes, we're at chapter 5. We only have 3 more episodes to go. If this continues, we're probably looking at maybe another hour and a half of Mando action. Are you feeling satisfied, or do you wish that there was time to go a little deeper?
Well, I would like to see at least a 10 episode run. I mean, I've noticed I always compare TV shows now to how they used to do them. I mean, it 30, 40 years ago, it was not uncommon for a TV show that was a half an hour long to do about 30 episodes or maybe even a little bit more per season. And now it's like it's not uncommon for a cable show to do 10 episodes. That seems to be fairly common with stuff like Ray Donovan or Better Call Saul or something. So 8 to me does seem kind of short. I mean, there are no commercials, so I mean, you can imagine if there were commercials, these would be running about an hour. But this one did seem a little bit short.
Did it
for me? Yeah, I try not to. I don't know. I'm glad it's there. I'm glad the show exists. I try not to really think about it in terms of its scarcity in that sense. Because I don't know. I just try not to focus on those things. I'm glad we have it, but since you're asking, it is short. I mean, it really is short. 8 episodes of half an hour, roughly, 40 minutes max. That does seem kind of short. It'll leave us wanting. I mean, there's no question it will. Yeah.
Matt, do you feel that you're getting your money's worth on the series in terms of how much Mando action? And I'm sure you're probably like a lot of people. I don't know what a big Disney file you are, but I'm guessing from what I know of you that chances are Mando was probably one of your primary motives in subscribing to the Disney Plus service.
Just a little bit, yeah, maybe. But I do think I feel like I'm getting my my Mando's worth. I mean, my feeling is always give me what you need to tell the story.
Yeah.
And if that's a half hour, great. If it's an hour, great. I just don't want to feel like we're overstaying our welcome or that we're rushing things. Mm-hmm. And so far, I feel like the pace for the stories that they've been wanting to tell have been right on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with this episode, starting off, Jimmy, with a dogfight, like right out of the gate.
Yes.
I was looking at my kids. I mean, I keep bringing them up because, you and I both know raising kids as not just Star Wars fans, but, fans of great story and drama and the best of popular culture. It's really great to watch them enjoy this. And I'm looking at my 7-year-old son, and he is just on the edge of his seat, and he looks at the Mando, and he's just like, this is his new hero. This is his new hero. And so it starts off with the dogfight, and you got little baby Yoda there. He's reacting to everything, but it does show you. I think what kind of struck me was that this is his life now, always on the run. The hunter has now become the hunted.
Yeah, it's clear that there are repercussions to be met in the wake of him taking the asset, they call it the target. A lot of times, don't they? They call it the target, without getting too specific. But there are going to be repercussions to be felt by the Mandalorian eventually. The other shoe is going to drop, and he's doing his best to avoid attention right now and let the heat cool off. So where does he go naturally? The place in the universe that's farthest from any sort of action, Tatooine, where everything happens.
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah.
you know, I mean, to the normal person, Tatooine is in the middle of nowhere. It's out in the sticks. Nothing happens there, and it's a great place to hide out. And we've seen that proven time and time again. The fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi was able to hang out there for 20-something years while watching out over Luke Skywalker proves that it is off the beaten path.
Yeah, well,
So-
no doubt. But I mean, how cool was it? I mean, all of the different, I don't even know that you can call them Easter eggs, because are they Easter eggs if you only if the only ones who recognize them are, you know, the real hardcore fans? I mean, Matt, one of the things that I you know, right away, you got the Mo, Larry, and Curly pit droids. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming these are the same pit droids that we saw in Watto's shop in episode 1.
Oh, the exact same one.
Had to be, right?
They look like it. I mean, it was
Same personalities.
I think you're right, Jason. It's not. They weren't Easter eggs because they weren't hidden in any way.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a Tatooine theme park tour.
That's right.
Yeah, and it was
Perfect
great.
way to put it.
It was just so much fun, and I mean, it may rub people the wrong way. It may be fan service, but you know, once we were there, and you know, even the camera shots walking into the cantina, you know, it was the same shots, the same angles as in A New Hope, and you knew right where he was going. I just yelled out when I saw him, like, that's the cantina.
Oh, yeah.
He's walking into
Yeah.
the cantina.
Of course.
I was doing
you know.
this. I'm like, kids, do you see this? Do you recognize that? He's landing. That could be where the Millennium Falcon was docked. That could
could've
be
been
the
docked,
same.
yeah.
Now we know it's
But it
not the
was-
same. It's not the same docking bay number. Yes. No.
Docking Bay 35 as opposed to 94.
But
By the
they
way,
eased
did
us
you-
into it.
Did you notice the sign over the cantina door?
No.
Did you ever notice that?
No.
Okay, now maybe this is an Easter egg, I guess, but there is an actual sign over the cantina door that was in the original movie. I had never noticed it until I saw the behind the scenes of the cantina panels at Celebration, the Tom Spina panels that they had for several years, and he pointed out this door and, you know, what it actually said. I can't remember. I think it does just say bar or something like that. An
Drink.
RO Besh, whatever it is.
It just
Yeah,
says
so
bar.
run that back. Yeah, you'll see. I don't know. Somebody listening could probably tell us what it is. 'Cause
Well,
I've forgotten, but I thought it.
Well, I'll tell you what. It just the second he came over the atmosphere of the planet and came in on the Razor Crest along the same trajectory that Leia's blockade runner and the Star Destroyer traveled in A New Hope, where you see the twin moons in the background. Thank God no one was around me when this was happening, because I was yelling and screaming at the top of my lungs. I was going crazy. It was a homecoming. And if there's anyone out there who thinks this is crappy fan service or whatever, I instantly question the authenticity of your fanhood. And I say, you know, reach out to me, show at rebelforceradio.com, and tell me what's wrong with this. Coming home, I felt the same way when the Queen ship landed on the outskirts of Mos Espa in The Phantom Menace. But it was different. It was a homecoming of sorts, but it was so much different than this. This was not only going back to the old neighborhood, but it was going back to your old house and hanging out in your old bedroom, the same bedroom you grew up in as a kid. It was incredible. And like I said, thank God you weren't around me, because I was making these noises that could quite possibly pierce eardrums.
This is why you got to do those reaction videos
And
man.
shit. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, maybe I'm primed for it. Now, okay, like, I would not question the authenticity of any fan who points a camera at themselves and watches this footage from the first 5 minutes of this episode. And, you know, would welcome any sort of blubbering, gushing, emotional reaction. I think is totally appropriate in this case. in this particular case, because it was truly a homecoming. When have we ever gone back to the Tatooine we know and love in live action Star Wars?
I was thinking, Jim, about Clone Wars, and I don't think that the Tatooine stuff was Mos Eisley, was it?
It was Jabba's palace.
Well, Jabba's palace was, but there were some cantina moments, and I don't think it was Mos Eisley cantina, though.
No.
I don't think it was Mos Eisley.
Well, wait a second. Hold on. Swanks onto something.
The U-shaped bar? Was that in Clone Wars?
In the Greedo the Elder appearances. I believe Clone Wars did go back to the Mos Eisley Cantina at one point. As a matter of fact, I'm almost positive they did. Oh. Look for those Greedo the Elder episodes that I think may be from the Baron Papanoida episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive they went. Now, I haven't really looked at that closely since... for a while, let's just say. I mean, recently I took a look at those episodes, but I wasn't thinking about the cantina. There is something that I was reminded of from Rebels in this episode, is at the beginning of this, when he's in the dogfight. And I think that is the very first dogfight we've actually seen in The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
Am I correct? That's the first
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah. And with the motion capture rig that John Knoll fabricated in his garage during his downtime, has added such a layer of authenticity every time the Razor Crest is on the screen. But so this is the first dogfight we see. And we see the Mando pull off a move very similar to a move Darth Vader does in season 2 of Star Wars Rebels.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Punches it in reverse and then blasts away his attackers. You know, turns the hunter into the hunted. And instantly I thought of that Vader sequence from Rebels.
Well,
at the very beginning of this episode.
The bounty hunter that we see in Hot Pursuit of the Mandalorian, Matt, is clearly a member of the guild, someone who knows the Mando very well, and is even offering to let him go, to let him live if he just does the right thing, the honorable thing, and turn over the asset.
Yeah. As you could, what does he say? I can take you in hot, or I can take you in cold. Which hot, I'm always thinking, that means you're gonna light him up with blasters, but no, that means he's breathing. He's alive. Right. But yeah, the first thing that I was thinking was similar to what you were saying, Jason, about he's still being pursued. This is his life now. He's on the run. Clearly, no rear weapons on the Razor Crest at all, because he needed to pull. You
might want to consider that.
Yeah, the Maverick maneuver or the Vader maneuver. High stakes there. It was not looking good for him.
But he's up against a lot of people who know him very well. I mean, I don't think he's an oversharer by any stretch, but clearly being in the guild and all of them working for Grief Karga, there's going to be stories told, and these guys are going to know him better than anybody, at least. And
they know what ship he's flying in. They know its specs for the most part. He's probably got some tricks up its sleeve, but for the most part, they know what he's packing. So they're dangerous foes.
Yeah, for sure. So he comes upon Mos Espa, and we meet Peli Motto. So now we know that those docking bays have garage mechanics that are attached to some of them. So he lands in his docking bay. What's that? Well, yeah, right. At least that one does. Right. So who knows? So
maybe she's renting it out, for her. Maybe he could franchise him.
She could be, but Bill, we've talked over the years about the style of acting that works in Star Wars, and that one of the things, Amy Sedaris, who great comedian. By the way, have you noticed that all these people having these guest spots are comedians?
Yeah.
They must work really cheap. They're
have
cheapest labor in Hollywood.
To Favreau.
Well, you have Horatio.
She was in Chef. I was wondering, maybe, I don't know if they knew each other before. They might have, but
you have. Let's do the roll call here. You have Horatio Sands,
Brian
Posen, Is that? Am I saying his name correctly?
I think so. He was the driver, right?
He
Yeah,
Took
he
the
was the
Mando
driver.
back to his ship.
And he does some of the nastiest Star Wars comedy. You think Patton Oswalt said offensive things about Star Wars in his comedy acts? You should check out Brian Posehn.
Patton said he'd like to go back in time and kill George with a shovel.
Yeah, it's pretty rough stuff. NSFW. And not for kids. And then and now you have Amy Sedaris and you have Bill Burr coming up on a season 1 episode as well.
Oh, Burr.
So,
oh God,
the casting director for The Mandalorian must have shop set up outside of the Comedy Store.
Oh, and don't forget Jeff Garland in Rise of Skywalker.
right?
That's right.
Jeff Garland,
Yeah.
right? So
That's
this happens a lot. But
Comedians in older Star Wars movies, I'm trying to think. Weren't the guys who did the two-headed announcer, were they comedians?
Greg Proops.
yeah,
of
Greg
course.
Proops. Yep. From
And
what?
the other guy?
Yeah, Greg Proops was with Drew Carey on the Whose Line Is It Anyway for many years, the UK version and the American version. But Bill, I wanted to mention about Amy Sedaris was she had that kind of rapid fire kind of kind of vibe going on with her. I thought she felt very Star Warsy. I really did. She's a little wordy. Star Wars characters tend not to be very wordy. But I felt that she really fit in. But I could also see people saying, whoa, who is this?
You know what? I didn't recognize her at first. I don't know if you guys picked up.
I didn't
on her.
either. I had to look her up, and I'm like, that was Amy Sedaris.
I knew she was.
I thought it was
familiar.
her. Yeah, I thought it was her.
Is it Tracy Ullman or something? I knew it was somebody.
You were close.
Yeah,
you were close.
and
you were on the right path. She's
What was
definitely
the
wearing
show?
a wig.
Something with Strangers with Candy from
Strangers
Comedy
with
Central.
Candy. Yeah,
many years
That's
ago.
what that's pretty much what I know her from.
Yes.
And then, and there was a movie, Strangers with Candy movie. But you know who she was reminding me of that I kept going back, and I knew it wasn't her, but I kept thinking of the. Are you guys familiar with Grease? Do you remember the woman who taught? She taught autos at the school. It's like Mrs. Murdoch or something like that.
She'd have to be like
this car.
She'd have to age like Baby Yoda in order for that to work out.
Right. She's probably not even with us anymore. But I knew it wasn't her. But I kept thinking that was who it reminded me of. I kept thinking
She did.
Like this real spunky. Like, okay, we're gonna fix this thing up here. So yeah, but she was good and obviously there's been a lot. I have seen some comments about how should we get to the plotting here of how.
Well, we can't. I tell you what, I want to bring on. We got our old buddy Cleveland Chris. He just jumped in on the RFR VIP line, and Chris was texting me just a little bit ago before we started saying, this wasn't my favorite. So I want to give Chris a chance to say, why wasn't this your favorite, Chris? Normally, you and I are both gushing.
Yeah. Well, happy holidays, everybody, first and foremost.
Same to you.
Same to you, man.
I think first off, what got me, it's definitely a fan service episode. You guys already covered a lot of that. And there was a lot that really made me smile. But the questionable writing and the acting, the ham acting, and you guys just talked about Amy Sedaris, she's a very talented comedic actor. But in this role, they made her look like, it's kind of like an SNL version of Ripley from Alien. Right? Like she totally had that Ripley from
but that's
Alien
kind of her thing.
So
isn't that her thing?
What do you mean?
Amy Sedaris' thing is she,
is being
alien straight though, don't you think?
Yeah, I thought she suited the role just fine in my opinion.
I do agree. There was something, like I said, there was something familiar about her that I guess you could interpret as being comedic, but it wasn't. I didn't think she was playing it for laughs, really, though.
Well,
no,
it wasn't broad.
No, she wasn't. But I didn't buy into the character. Jason, I didn't feel she was very Star Warsy. This is the first episode that finally saw two characters in an episode that I just wasn't completely sold on. The other one was that bounty hunter Toro.
Yeah.
Just not necessarily a character, but definitely the actor. The actor just, from the moment I saw him on screen, I go, oh boy, this guy. He was like a Saved by the Bell, like teenager, you know, like
he was a little Vinnie Barbarino.
Yeah.
He's
that's right.
Hog. Sweat hogs in space.
He was a little Vinnie Barbarino.
So weird.
But, I think he fitted the role. It's something we're seeing from actors like this, like Toro, like Amy Sedaris' character, like Horatio Sands' character in the first film, is that they're not delivering their dialogue with that sort of 1920, 1930s kind of vibe that a lot of characters in the original, especially in the George Lucas directed films, would pull off.
I thought Amy was doing that.
Going to get us past this blockade. See,
I thought
it's like
Sedaris had a little bit of that.
I thought so too.
There was kind of that screwball quality to
it. All right, well, but I don't hear I hear a more like a normal person kind of patter coming out of her that you wouldn't normally get. I mean, you don't even normally get that in regular TV. A lot of TV people, characters, they say things that it's like, wow, no human being would actually deliver a sentence that way. But it happens. Like if you ever watch Walking Dead, that they are laden, the actors are laden with so much dialogue. I mean, it's like they're weighed down by it. It's just they go on and on and on. Yeah. And it's almost like you can picture them reading it out of a script. It's not how normal people talk. I get normal people from Amy Sedaris.
Yeah, but and I'll tell. Yeah, I mean, I do kind of concede that point a little bit. There were times, but there were one thing I did notice about the dialogue at times. Now this might be nitpicking a little bit. Yeah, well we're talking about fan service.
Picking nits
and
picking nits. Here's Billy Mack. There he is.
All the Easter eggs were terrific. But, a phrase stuck in my mind towards the end of this episode with the Sedaris character, and that was Star Wars Mad Libs. I was thinking because she said something that was very
I agree. I totally agree.
And it was like, she might as well be saying, oh, I'm just going to, drop over to Anchorhead, and if I happen to run into any womp rats over there, I'll drop off the Texas Canyon. It's like, okay.
All right. Okay.
No, she went out of her way. She went out of her way to use a lot of phrasing that we're intimately familiar with as diehard Star Wars fans. But that wasn't just her character. It was laden throughout the whole episode, which, once again, I don't necessarily fall. And the more I think about it, all these episodes, they kind of just play like a one-shot comic book, because we're just introduced to like IG-11 in one episode, Cara Dune in one episode. Now we're introduced to Toro and this, I forget her name, but it almost is just like a comic book adventure, the old Marvel comic at least, where you're just going from, these really different character setups. But this one was definitely laden with a lot of just, you're right, spot on, Billy, the Mad Libs. I've got the same vibe where they just kind of pigeonhole some things in there. But I thought it was a cute episode. I think for me, some of the things I did enjoy, because I could pick nits all day about this episode. But the things I did enjoy was that, and I don't know if you guys already talked about this, when they walked in the cantina, the first thing I thought of was like, oh, dude, there are EV-99s behind the bar.
Right.
And the funniest part about that is that there's no droids. And here they are running the show. Like, that was a pretty funny, tongue-in-cheek thing for me. The crate drag.
Yeah, they've gone from no droid. They've gone from no droids to the droid being the bartender. I love the EV droid. I was very happy with my daughter as she's like, she saw a EV behind the bar and she's like, wasn't he just working in Jabba's palace?
Oh no! Wait a second. Was that?
I don't think it's not the same droid. Yeah, it's still an EV droid. No, it's not the same one. But I was very proud.
Did you notice too at the door, now correct me if I'm wrong, but in the original Star Wars, by the door there's that box that kind of with the blue light. That's
It was not there.
It was gone.
It was gone.
Otherwise, it was an accurate recreation. That was like a droid detector.
They don't.
thing, right?
Yes, they don't need it anymore because the droids are running the bar.
That was the first thing they ripped out when they bought the place.
That was
that's gone.
The second thing they removed was the band.
I will play devil's advocate for a sec and say that with Amy Sedaris' character, she was for me the culmination of the sense I was getting of some of these guest stars on the shows would give me the sense a little bit of the holiday special where you would have, B. Arthur would drop in, and then there was Art Carney, and they were never quite doing the Star Wars thing, but they were there like, I'm in a bar, let's sing, they do what they do, and they're doing it on this show.
Well, hey, we know that Favreau is a big fan of the holiday special.
Yeah.
So
yes,
it's true.
And I was getting that sense because they're slightly out of step with Star Wars proper, it seemed, in the way they're.
You know what, though?
I got the sense with the waitress in the last episode.
Well, I got to say, I loved.
Absolutely.
There was something about Toro's introduction that I loved because I love that he had the boot up on the table, and he had all this confidence. And it was such a stark contrast to Han Solo because the guy was, a total wimp.
Weasel,
and a weasel. And he was, just completely bluffing the whole time. And he's like, I really need your help. It kind of reminded me of Finn a little bit there.
It's kind of like this, the relationship between the Mandalorian and Toro. It's very similar to John Wayne and Jeffrey Holder in The Searchers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, not Jeffrey Holder?
I was going to say Jeffrey Holder.
Jeffrey what?
Hunter.
Okay.
Jeffrey Hunter. Oh, all right.
Guys, I knew it was wrong coming out of my mouth.
But I'd really like to see that movie.
But that would definitely be a Wild West.
Did you watch Three Godfathers yet? Remember, I brought that up the other week.
No. Now, what's the connection to this episode in Three Godfathers?
Not much.
Oh, well, thanks for bringing it up.
It's just another John Wayne.
Thanks for bringing
It's just another John Wayne movie.
John Wayne cast. Just because I say Searchers doesn't mean the floodgates
Wayne
open. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about John Wayne. Bill, wow us all with your your amazing grasp of the career of John Wayne, and explain to us how the relationship between the Mandalorian and Toro represent that of. Okay,
my head's gonna explode.
But I mean, what the only thing I mean by that is that in The Searchers, Wayne takes on this young guy who's green and trying to learn the ropes and takes him under his wing. And with it being kind of a Western, the Mandalorian itself being a Western, a Star Wars Western, I kind of got the Searchers vibe from that.
Yeah, but he didn't betray him. He didn't betray Wayne in The Searchers, though.
Well, yeah, the way the story unfolded
that was different. But that is
true.
That is a Western trope. I mean, you do see the young hotshot outlaw or whatever that connects with the older guy. Mm-hmm. I definitely. Thought of Clint Eastwood. There's that one time where he goes, well, but I'm not wearing Beskar. And he goes, nope. So that was so Eastwood, man. I mean, that was right out of Outlaw Josie Wales, which also featured kind of a younger, cocky guy with, paired up with Eastwood.
Yeah.
I just love that Toro could have been sitting in the same place as Han Solo, and what a contrast. So, Chris, before we let you go, I know you're a big fan of the series, so I don't want you to be confused with our other Cleveland native, Mr. Downer, Adam Giffey. So, I know you're a fan of the series, but I got to ask you, because you came back and you were talking about fan service, and Jimmy and I opened the program with this notion of fan service. When does it cross the line for you? Because, for me, it's like, yeah, damn right. Would you please acknowledge me as a fan? I exist.
Well, no, absolutely. And I think they did such a great job with it in the first few episodes. And really, it brought you back to all the things that you love and all the familiarity. And you felt like you were back home again. And this was literally just the first episode that I was just like, oh boy, like they're literally trying to drop as much as they can into one episode that it is just so overtly for the fans. And once again, I'm not upset about it. I just want to be clear. I'm not upset. I don't want to be a downer. I mean, I think there were more things wrong with the episode than just like, across the Dune Sea and having the crate dragon noise and, all those things. Those are all fun. It's a fun episode, and it's supposed to be a fun show regardless. I just think that the casual fan, the Disney Plus consumer who's just getting, the Starbucks barista who's never watched a Star Wars, the Whole Foods cashier who's never watched a Star Wars, they're just going to look at this and be like, oh, wait, the Mandalorian, forgot his most powerful weapon on his ship. He left Baby Yoda to just hang out and go to sleep while he went on a mission. All these questionable things, they're not necessarily going to get the nods. Whether that's a positive or negative is up to just the viewer. I just think they really, really forced it in this episode. It wasn't necessarily a natural thing. And I'm just... once again, this is the first episode that I kind of sat there. I had a very long week at work, and I woke up super early to watch the episode, and I sat there. I'm like, man, they really are they're plugging everything they can in this episode.
Well, let me just let me interject here real quick and just say that this is something that we noticed, and it bothered us from time to time. If you go back and listen to the roundtables we did on all the Clone Wars, they were not averse to throwing in, as Bill says, Star Wars Mad Libs. They would throw in full lines of dialogue, and Jim, that was part of. People would call it, the George Lucas, a poetic way of writing, where there were echoes and refrains and reprises of lines. There was a lot of theories about these things, the way that the various stories sort of harken back to themselves and all of that. So it's not new to hear Star Wars in Star Wars.
Well, I think it's bullcrap to think that a casual viewer can't latch onto this episode and enjoy it just because there's some old school references and Easter eggs. The story itself is not dependent on the location. It's not dependent on the creatures like dewbacks or anything like that. They are elements that move the story along, but you don't have to be schooled on Star Wars in the slightest to be able to enjoy this episode. I think, Cleveland Chris, you're getting a little too bogged down with what your expectations might be as a fan, and I don't even know why you're worrying about what casual fans think. I hardly ever watched an episode of Game of Thrones until the last 3 episodes of the final season, and I watched those. And I'll tell you, there wasn't a damn Game of Thrones enthusiast who cared one iota about what I knew or what I cared about when I watched those last 3 episodes. And I think this episode stands on its own and can be watched by anyone, whether they've seen a Star Wars film or not.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. It just, for whatever reason, and I'm not trying to rattle any cages or anything like that, it just didn't work for me. That's all. I
don't see how any Star Wars fan who grew up with the original trilogy wouldn't relish this homecoming, going back to these familiar locales for the first time ever in a live action sequence.
Did you feel, Chris,
something years?
Chris, were you feeling pandered to as a fan? Is that kind of what it was?
No, and I think I know where I'm trying to get with this. Is that Jim? You said it, man. I think my expectations were a little bit different for what the Mandalorian, the show in its entirety, actually is. I had expectations of massive world building. I did not. I guess when the show started, I didn't expect it to go back to the roots. I definitely expected it to pay some homage to the original trilogy with it, with its time frame and everything. I just didn't, I did not expect a homecoming. So yeah, maybe my expectations have been skewed so far. I also didn't think that it was going to be more of a episode to episode where it's almost like I mentioned earlier, almost like a comic book. But maybe my expectations are just off on this show. And yeah, dude, I mean, I am diehard Star Wars guy. And
we know you
love
are.
the
There's
show.
no. Yeah. I mean, this guy.
I'm not saying.
No, you don't. No, you don't need. No, your Star Wars cred is safe. Don't worry about that. But I see what you're saying. I keep going back to the Star Wars Mad Libs thing. I think that it's fair. I do think that it's a fair criticism, but I don't think anything was necessarily out of place here, given where they were.
The same thing could be said for any episode of Star Trek in any Star Trek series. Transporter, dilithium, warp speed, all that stuff. It's the language.
Yeah.
Well,
the language.
Let me throw this out.
Trouble with Tribbles was perfect. Trouble with Tribbles was perfect. Okay, that's
perfect episode. By the way, Matt, people are noticing
they embrace it. They embrace it.
They're noticing the Star Trek books behind you. Just so you know, the people.
Oh
in the
yeah,
live
no,
chat.
they're there. I wear it. There's the Enterprise is there, and
yeah.
we got everything going on here.
Okay. Last thing I want to, before we let Chris go, I want to talk about, he talked about world building. Billy Mack, did you have an expectation, do you have an expectation of, this series world building? Does it feel small to you? People are saying on the chat, and yes, we're monitoring the chat, hey, you introduced Cara Dune, oh, she's a one and done. Oh, you introduced Griff Karga. He shows up a couple times and he's gone. IG-11, gone. You introduce a character like Fennic Shand, or this Toro guy, gone. There doesn't seem to be a priority of building the universe. Does the show suffer for that and feel small by chance?
No, not yet. No, it's too soon to tell. I don't think it's suffering from that at all. Because
Horatio Sands gone.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
I know how much that bothers you. That's a real stone in your shoe. But no, I mean, I think they've established some interesting characters already, and we know. From the publicity that there's going to be more like what's his face, Giancarlo.
Giancarlo. Giancarlo. Yeah, right. Where's this guy? We're almost done with the whole series.
We may have seen him.
Grief Karga seems to be a recurring character. Definitely would like to learn more about him.
Carl Weathers, by the way, has said that he's back for season 2. There you go. Mm-hmm.
No, I think they're establishing rules in terms of how the guild works and fobs and pucks and all that stuff. That's all building a certain mythology that for me is working quite well so far.
There's a character rollout that's happening too.
Yeah, and you could bring there are characters, definitely. I mean, and I'm kind of glad we're not seeing them in every episode.
Yeah.
It'll be nice when they return and they could focus on them a little bit more, especially if they're characters that resonate with us. I always think about how like Saturday Night Live has changed over the years, and one of the things I remember when I was a kid was like, when they did the cheeseburger restaurant sketch. They only did that like 7 or 8 times. It wasn't like they did it every week. And,
right.
And later on, into the 90s and even today, Saturday Night Live, just when they got a character, man, I mean, they hit on that hard.
Yes.
I mean, you'll see, and that started like in the Dana Carvey years. You would see Church Lady
every
week.
Every week.
But it wasn't like that way back when. It was always a really exciting thing when the Coneheads would show up again, because they only did it a dozen times.
Also with Saturday Night Live, Horatio Sands gone.
Hey, Chris. Hey man, we'll catch up this week. Thanks so much for. Chris is a young guy, but he goes to bed at like 8:00, so he's hanging with us late, and we appreciate it. Chris will be with us for Skywalker Rises in Ohio. In fact, he had to do a little reshuffling of some vacation and some. Well, there was a wedding involved, not his wedding, but Anyway, we
Doctor's
appreciate it.
appointment, their
Oh, it
doctor's
was.
appointment,
He's
a
really.
haircut. I mean, oh my God.
He's really sacrificing, but anyway,
He's going
if
to
you
go on a fast. Now that's over. You can't do that.
he'll be around to defend his position about this episode. So, all right, buddy, good talking to you. We'll chat with you soon, okay?
See you, Chris.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
All right, you
Bye,
too.
guy.
Looking forward to seeing him, even though I think he's absolutely crazy
He's
to
totally
critique
right.
a
Well,
return
hey,
to
let's-
Tatooine, for Christ.
Matt,
We
I'm
went
gonna
back to Mos Eisley.
Matt, I'm
for
going to
crying
give you a
out.
quiz. Okay, so Star Wars
boy.
Mad Libs. To the best of your recollection, throw out some of the terminology, the vocabulary that was used in this episode that sticks out at
Womp rats.
you. Womp
I
rat.
remember Womp Rats.
Yep.
I remember Mos Espa
Of
being
course.
thrown out
Yeah.
there because they
Uh-huh.
were in Eisley.
That's
Yeah.
where Fennic Shand was going to have her rendezvous, was in Mos Espa.
Yeah, there was something over, and then I don't remember any more casual name drops as much as there were the Tatooine tropes that were introduced.
Yep.
You know, when
There
he
was-
Like when the Mando said, "I hate sand. It gets everywhere."
No, he did not say that.
Oh.
He didn't. No,
That's everywhere.
no, but he did. But
He was
Pelly
thinking it.
Pelly did say something about carbon scoring.
Yeah.
that carbon
Carbon scoring.
very good,
You must
yes,
have been in
yes.
there was another line though, guys. It's driving me crazy. There was a line that was right. Oh, Beggar's Canyon. Thank you, Gratz, on the chat for throwing that out there.
That was a good one though. I like that was a deep track.
But there was a full line that I go, that's so Filoni to grab that entire line and lift it and put it in the show. What the hell was it?
a full line of dialogue.
Yeah, full line of dialogue. It was in the first third of the episode, and it's making me crazy. Oh no, yeah, Tyrone. Thank you, Tyrone, on the chat. Yeah, you're no good to me, dead.
No good to
That was
That
one.
Yes.
entirely. I missed that one.
Yeah,
Nice.
you're no
Did
good
the,
to me.
That's not
She's no
Tatooine
good to us
specific,
dead. I
right?
think he might have
Did
said.
Mando say that?
Mando
Or-
said
No.
that.
Oh,
No,
he
the
did.
guy
That's
said
right.
it.
That's right.
Yeah,
I
Mando
was
said
thinking-
that to Toro.
Yes.
Toro.
Yeah, she's no good to us
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah, but that could have been in any episode because that's not Tatooine specific. It just got very Tatooine heavy, which I was fine with, but apparently,
Yeah.
with some cause for controversy.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about the Tusken Raider
Oh,
cameo.
yeah.
Sand people,
yeah.
man. How can you go
That was
wrong with
that
sand
was a
people?
big deal. That was a big deal. Oh man, at the
I'd probably
risk of
devoted-
sounding like our buddy Paul Bateman,
What?
I'm gonna have to throw it out there and say they looked a little off model, just a bit.
Oh, they
I gotta say, I have not. I didn't feel this way about the Jawas. I didn't feel this way about any of the droids, but I feel like they looked like they were wearing Halloween costumes.
No.
They
no,
did a
no.
little. No, I know
didn't
what
feel
Jason's
that
saying.
at all.
They did. They did. I
Jason's
feel
got-
that way.
Jason's
They look
onto
legit.
something. They look
They
legit.
look-
They
they
were
look
very
good
clean
to
and crisp. They were
Yes,
something
too
and crisp
clean.
about them. And they just kind of showed up. They were just there suddenly. They weren't even
Yeah.
like threatening to attack. They were kind of standing there,
Right.
like out of some kind of like sketch comedy.
It was a little sketch comedy. That's
You
right.
just turned around, you hear, and then they're there. They're right there, just kind of standing there, like Joe and Bob. Joe and Bob Tusken are just like,
Well, here they are.
Yeah.
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 Hello.
But
Why don't you tell them yourself?
with their cameo, it
Like those little
was pretty
twigs
obvious.
with the shiny.
Jim, the fact that Mando was able to sort of do that sign language bit and to know philosophically that the Sand People feel, you could compare this to our own Native Americans in North America. They feel that it's their land and that everyone else are invaders.
Yeah,
He
well,
knows the
clear-
culture. He speaks the
it's the
sign language.
symbolism.
It's not the first time Mando has been to Tatooine and hung out with the Sand People.
Oh, without question. And I find it interesting to hear him, talk about them being the indigenous species and all of that. In almost in response to Anakin Skywalker's reaction to them. They're animals. I slaughtered them like animals, without even taking into whatever humanity they have into account. They obviously can communicate. That's something new. We've never seen Tuskens communicate with humans or non-Tuskens, even for that matter.
Do you remember in the original making of Star Wars, the who narrated that? Robert
Conrad.
He goes,
yes.
Animal, vegetable, or mineral. Early production sketches of the Sand People don't specify.
That's good stuff. Now there is an inconsistency with the Tusken Raiders as I know them.
Okay.
That I am taking into account while watching this episode of The Mandalorian is the fact that they were able to barter by using the micro binoculars, the binocs as he called them. He was able to barter their safe passage across the Dune Sea, which is another one of those Star Wars Mad Libs if you want to throw those in.
Right.
Excuse me. But as far as I've always known the Tusken Raiders, as far as they've always been depicted in various forms of Star Wars media, they've always had this adverse reaction to technology. They would occasionally attack the moisture evaporators on the far perimeter of certain farms as a form of protest against technology. They were a very basic, down-to-earth sort of...
They're the Star Wars Amish.
I may have an answer for you, Jimmy.
They do have blasters. Okay, they do have blasters. That's one.
In A New Hope, the first thing they do after they attack Luke and company is they start raiding his speeder.
Well, yes.
They're looking for stuff.
Right.
Are they, or are they dismantling it because it?
Well, they pull out like all this junk from his speeder and like, what is this crap? And they just kind of like toss it.
They're trying to make it non-functional because they believe that the carbon emissions from the land speeder is destroying the atmosphere.
No.
Global warming on Tatooine.
Noble
Can you imagine what people would do if we had two suns? Man, oh man.
Yes, it takes a whole new meaning. Global warming on Tatooine.
Their body language said to me that they were scavenging. That's all I'll say.
I agree with Matt. They were scavenging. I don't think that they're disrupting technology.
They were looking for Luke's stash.
I think that they were very sensitive about their territory, but they were not above getting some swag.
Well, that's debatable. It's open to debate.
Hey.
We've presented both sides of the argument, and I would like our listening audience to weigh in.
Let's
right
let them start weighing in. So let's take some of these calls. We got we have got a full roster of callers, starting with Dan. Hey Dan, you've been on hold the longest.
Dan
from Utah. You got Tusken Raiders out there in Utah, I'm sure. Yo, Dan.
Oh, dude, we have them all over the place. Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here, man. Thanks for hanging with us so long.
Yeah, no worries. So, yeah, real quick about the Tusken Raiders. You mentioned that they looked a little off. My first thought was, I wonder if those are 501st, because there was some news about them bringing in stormtroopers.
That's right, yes.
These 501st costumes?
They were using 501st?
Yeah, they did, but I think that's for a scene where we'll see several stormtroopers in action, and they needed extras. I don't think we've even seen any 501st, despite the fact we've seen stormtroopers in earlier episodes. I'm quite sure that those guys were actors, and the 501st will be brought in for a specific sequence later in the season that features lots of stormtroopers. So we haven't even scratched the surface of what Imperial remnants are up to, really, outside of that underground area that Werner Herzog was hanging out in, the Client. He doesn't even have a name yet, Herzog's character.
No.
He's just known as the Client.
And they're on Navarro, right? By the way, did you pick up the fact that I got a little confused because Navarro and Tatooine look very similar,
Right.
Yes.
down to the pikes with the stormtrooper helmets. What do we think? I'm sorry, Dan, just bear with us just a moment and feel free to chime in if you have a theory on this.
No
But
worries.
what do we think that the trooper helmets on the pikes signify?
When they showed that, I thought to myself, is this the first time we're seeing? I know but they did have that on the other planet, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't think did they though? I thought that was. I just remember that from the trailer.
It seems like we've been talking. Jim, you and I have been talking about.
I don't think they did, guys,
because it's been in the trailer.
In the trailer,
this is the first time we're actually seeing it.
This is the first time they show up. I assumed from the first episode.
Oh man!
I assumed that those guys from the first episode were going to be the ones with their heads on the pikes, but we don't see the pikes on that episode. This is the first time that we see that.
Okay. It's something indicating to us as we venture into Tatooine with the Mandalorian. It's something of an indication to us that there is no Imperial occupation on Tatooine.
All right. See, Bill and I are getting our visual dictionaries mixed up a little bit here because of
maybe
the footage from trailers and all of that. I feel like we saw that.
We haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so all right.
Imperial
occupation. I don't think we have.
When we catch up with Luke and everyone in A New Hope, Imperial occupation wasn't really a thing on the planet Tatooine. It wasn't until the droids crash landed in the escape pod when the Empire actually started to develop a presence around the bigger areas like Mos Eisley, etc. Mm-hmm. And that is, specifically because they were looking for the droids, and then they just stayed. I would guess, once the Empire plants its flag, it's not going anywhere.
Now,
and so I imagine that the population then revolted against whatever Imperial remnants were there.
That's exactly right. Jeff on the chat says that he feels that it means that the local population has ousted the Empire after Endor.
Yeah,
not welcome.
Me and Jim were talking about the appearance of a very similar imagery in Apocalypse Now, which I was watching.
Right.
I've been kind of reconnecting with, and they have these pikes outside of Colonel Kurtz's compound. Now,
you only catch them briefly.
Yeah, but the meaning is a little bit different. Colonel Kurtz has kind of gone native, or at least kind of formed his own tribe in the jungle. He has become part of the jungle, and all those type of metaphors. But it seems like the first time I've seen that, and this may be where this idea. Obviously, Apocalypse Now is not the first war film or war depiction that showed heads on pikes. And of course that happened in real life. I'll never forget when I was a kid, my parents had a Life magazine book that was all photographs of World War II, and there were pictures of soldiers that had heads, severed heads that they would put on their tanks, or hang on fences outside of their compounds and stuff. I just remember being really shocked seeing that. But of course, that sends a very strong message to anybody coming in.
No doubt it does. Dan in Utah. Sorry, Dan, we went off on a tangent there. So please, you have the floor with what you would like to chat with us about tonight.
Well, I just wanted to go back and talk about what you guys were going on about with fan service, and I don't feel like this is a bad thing as far as what they call fan service. Like, this is Star Wars, right? Like, This is Tatooine, this is Mos Eisley. Like, why can't we show this? Like, why can't we go into the cantina?
Right.
And I don't know if you guys caught this, when the Mandalorian is coming back on the dewback, there is a shot of him from below looking up at him on the dewback, and it is the exact same shot of the stormtrooper on the dewback from the old Topps trading card. It's like, this is so awesome.
That's I love that too. That's
right.
That's killer.
Yeah, these guys know the source material very well, and they are flexing their muscles in that department.
Were you around when those cards came out, man? Did you have?
I was born in '79, so I was a little bit older. I was younger when those had all come out, and so I had collected them from my older brother. But I had them all in the house, and I just remember looking through them and just being in awe of this. Because you remember back in the day, VHS was kind of a hard thing to get a hold of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so watching Star Wars was like this unique thing. And so all I really had were cards and books. And when you got to see the movie, it was like, wow, this thing really is as cool as you thought it was.
And plus, dude, you don't ever, fan service, fan fulfillment. I mean, that card image from the old Topps card, you never quite see that in the movie. The dewbacks in the original version, the dewbacks are way in the background, and then there's one sitting outside of the canteen, and that's it up until the special edition.
That's right.
You don't see stormtroopers hauling around on dewbacks.
They're hardly in the film,
right? And so that image on that Topps card that filled a big, that was
a huge
that was
void.
a fantasy piece for a kid.
I mean, here we are.
We're looking at those.
Right, we're buying the toy, and we're not seeing the dewback in the film. Oh, there it is, way in the background.
Yeah, they didn't quite work. You know, when those special editions first came out, I remember seeing those interviews with George, and he said, he said some things you do out of necessity and some things you do out of whimsy, and the dewbacks were there as whimsy. And the dewbacks for me have always sort of symbolized the kind of creative genius madness of George Lucas. Like, let's put these guys on like dinosaurs, lizard things, like just, it doesn't make any sense at all. But man, as kids, we were just blown away.
He could pull that off in 76 or whatever. It really is crazy.
He has this incredibly profound visual imagination.
Yeah.
And so he comes up with this image in his head of these stormtroopers riding giant lizards and tries to pull it off in the desert. But when they get out there, the only way they can make the things move is by like bumping the side of the head with a broom handle or something. So there goes the dewback close up. George had intended to, give those dewback creatures full frame treatment and close-ups in the original, but it didn't work.
On the desert,
it didn't work. Got out there, we got the thing, so they put them in the shot anyway and merchandised them. But they never really gave him the payoff he was looking for.
But that's where the storybook saved us, because that had all the close-ups and the deleted scenes and the things that we thought we saw.
Storybook, Starlog magazine, Topps trading cards.
But certainly the things that the close-ups of there's that iconic shot, which is a production still of the stormtrooper on the dewback. Which you're right, we never get that close in the movie, in the original.
And it's so absolutely essential to the overall fan experience of the original trilogy fan that it's got to be totally lost on fans of today, because the home video release happens 3.5, 4 months after the movie came out. There's really no void to fill with material goods like trading cards and movie magazines.
Well, Star Wars hurt in our day. It hurt. It doesn't hurt anymore.
It was a lot of work.
It was a lot. It was freaking Viewmasters and
sweat,
record
tears,
record storybooks, all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, it was nuts. Hey, Dan, are you still with us there?
I don't blame him. I don't blame him. He's like, there's so much more happening in Utah than like calling these guys waiting on hold and then getting put on the show just to listen to him talk.
I think, hold on a second. I feel
we have to give, if Dan calls back, we'll give him more time.
No, it wasn't Dan. I think that, hold on a second. I think that we might have, we dropped here. So just.
Oh. This happened last week. We had a caller from Green Bay, Wisconsin calling in.
Yep.
And he was very excited when we put him on the line, and then we lost him immediately.
Yeah, this is all us here. Let's add this back to the the calls here.
There call in studio.
Yeah.
And call blah, blah. Please enter your show number and press pound.
Game.
People are.
That was an invalid
all right,
show
everyone
number.
Quiet on the set here.
Please re-enter your show number, followed by the pound key. Enter your 6-digit PIN number. Welcome. Welcome, host.
Sorry about that.
You are now in the host
for whatever
room,
reason,
and
it
you can
dropped
manage
the
your
call.
callers from the call-in studio web interface.
All right, let's talk to, we've got John. He's been holding on for a long time. John from Jersey. Yo, John.
Jersey John.
Are you there, John?
Hey, guys.
Hey,
Can
brother.
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, yeah, awesome. First-time caller. I love the show.
Thank
Happy
you.
to get on.
Thank you very much. What's on your mind tonight?
Just
Chapter
to,
5.
Well, I kind of want to piggyback on what you guys were saying about, all the kind of fan service that's getting thrown around and the mad living. I love it. I think that it's great. I think that this series is just finally something that was made genuinely for the fans. It feels so original trilogy. And, as I believe Jimmy was saying, it's almost like, going home and, and someone else said that, getting to go to that Tatooine theme park. And, I kind of look at it as a way of it's story continuity. It makes sense to me that they would all speak that way and, have that kind of Mos Eisley culture because we're going back to that place.
Right. It's not a bad thing. I just to me, I don't know. I guess it's like, gosh, it's an overused analogy, but the famous quote about porn, right? It's hard to define, but you know it when you feel it or when you see it. I guess
Exactly.
we're feel it. But the
right,
fact
Swank.
is, well, I'm just saying that it's one of those things
Swank.
that no. There's
Swank.
it's something
there
that's
goes
very
our
hard to
PG
define. And when fan service crosses the line to being patronizing or being a crutch, I think that's really what the difference is for me. When it becomes a crutch for folks that maybe don't really understand how to write Star Wars or tell stories in that universe, that's different. We know these guys know how to do it, but they're giving us these little winks and these little nudges, and I love that.
Is it a crutch or is it a foundation? A solid.
It depends on who's using it and how it's used.
Yeah,
In this case, I think it's foundation. I think with lesser writers, it's a crutch.
Verisimilitude. Look that up.
Truthfulness.
Yeah, that's what it's verisimilitude. Because you have to.
Yeah, we got a college boy here with his big fancy words. Come on, college boy.
PSAT word.
Joe College.
Hey, PSAT boy.
Verisimilitude. Look it up. Verisimilitude.
One of the
Oh, he's looking it
I
up.
was gonna say one of the callbacks that I really liked. If I can, I don't know if it's been said yet, but R5D4 is floating around the cantina.
Oh, did you see that? They must have fixed him.
D4.
Apparently, he got his motivator fixed.
Nice.
Now he's hanging out at the bar.
I thought that was a more pinkish looking, not the red. The red.
What, he had a pinkish hue?
Come on.
It's worn in the Tatooine sun.
and you
We
was
know those
red.
twin suns do a number on human skin, so I'm sure it wore that red out a little bit.
Yes, John is right. Yes, the twin suns have faded the red on R5D4.
That could be. They need to store R5 in a building that has UV protection on its windows.
Hey, John, appreciate it, man. Thanks for the call, and thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. You know what? Hey, we haven't talked to him for a while. We got Eric from Phoenix. Eric.
Hey, guys.
Hey, man, how are you?
Great. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, our pleasure. Thanks for calling in. What's going on? What do you got to say about Chapter 5? We only have 3 more episodes to go.
Well, it's disappointing that there's only a few episodes left. I have to say, I heard you guys talk, and I've seen some of the comments on the stream that some people didn't like this episode, and that's fine. But man, I loved it.
Yeah.
And I loved all the callbacks. But here's my question for you guys. So they end up going to Tatooine, which gave Dave a lot of opportunity to do. You guys talked about it, not Easter eggs, but callbacks. They pretty much took the plate right out of the opening scene of Episode 4. coming into Tatooine. They took the plate out from when they're on the cliff looking at Mos Eisley. Then when you see Mos Eisley, I mean, pretty much those, I think, were taken directly from Ep4. But my question is, they went to Tatooine, they got to do all this stuff, but to me, it all ties in at the end with the character we see, who we don't know who it is. I mean, is it Boba Fett,
about that,
or is that too easy? But I mean, why go to Tatooine just for fan service if it's not tied in to what happens at the end of the episode? That's my question. I guess that's the thing I've been thinking about.
That's a really good question.
I mean, it was cool.
Okay, all right. Let's throw it out here to our group. Bill, the fact that we have the mysterious stranger at the end of the episode, and it's on Tatooine, is that a coincidence? If this was just any other planet, it could be any other bounty hunter that's following the trail to get to the Mandalorian and get to the asset, but this wasn't just any planet, it was Tatooine. What do you think? I mean, is this just a coincidence?
Not a coincidence. I rewound that scene, as I'm sure many people did. The sound effects for Boba Fett.
What? The sound effects?
Yes, dude. Oh, did you not kind of parse this out? You first of all, you have kind of a radio frequency noise that was the same that was used in the special edition for Star Wars when Boba Fett shows up in that Jabba scene, and then you have the sound of the spurs. So I hear that.
Man, I did not pick up on that.
Yeah,
okay,
dude, that's totally there. Now, my mind is thinking, okay, if it's Boba Fett, that really kind of has potential to take over the narrative of the show. I mean, if you do something that big. So I'm kind of fighting against it, even though those sound effects are there. Now, the show has used certain do we call them library effects, classic Star Wars sound effects and voices that are out of their original context. I mean, I've heard I know in one episode I heard like Ithorian. I can't remember if that's what it was, but it was something like that, like the Ithorian hammerhead voice going. And
for the record, I did note that I found it refreshing that we didn't hear an obvious Utini from the Jawas in episode 2, chapter 2.
No, but there was some stuff.
No, hold on. People have sent me evidence of an Utini in the sound mix. It's there. And so
Hakuna Matata, I think, is in there.
Yeah, they just can't. But they just can't help themselves.
But so anyway, they haven't been adverse to using sound effects that aren't exactly from the sources that we associate them with. So that doesn't clinch it. If you look at the footage, it's very dark, and I did rewind and look at it a couple times, to see, do the shoes match?
We see boots, we see a cape.
They're boots. Well, they're boots, and they're not Boba Fett's boots. You do see a cape. So
the cape.
I'm leaning towards it not being Boba Fett.
Right.
Maybe it's this Giancarlo.
That's what a lot of people are speculating.
Giancarlo.
They say that he wears a cape in whatever footage we've seen of him in trailers. People do note he's wearing a cape. The boots look a little not quite Mandalorian. At first, when I finished the episode and the credits rolled, I thought it was the Mandalorian himself.
I did too.
Going back maybe to grab the body, to claim the bounty on the body and use it as a way to win favor back into the guild. But again, taking into note the fact that the radio frequency sound that is a Boba Fett trademark, you can hear it in The Empire Strikes Back when he's tracking the Falcon in the Slave One.
Man, I wish I had I don't have the audio, but I'm going to go back and listen to that. As soon as we're done with this show, I'm going to go back and listen to that.
I don't think it's the same from that scene, though. It's definitely that special edition.
There's something similar. And then, of course, the sound of the spurs which is such a Boba Fett identifier going back to Empire.
But we've heard the spurs on the Mandalorian too, right?
Oh, okay. So then
it could be another Mandalorian.
Now, keeping in mind when we see more of a full cape on this character too. Boba Fett always wore the half cape just over the shoulder. The Mandalorian wears a full cape on his back. Boba couldn't because he had the jetpack. I don't know. I part of me wants to think that is the Mandalorian himself going back to fetch a tracker off of her or to get the body or something.
But that's kind of, I mean, they're teasing us. Why would they tease us if it ends up just being him? That's kind of...
Because that's fun serialized television stuff right there. That's the serial. That's the old school serial.
But it's kind of narratively wonky, though. If he's already taken off in the ship...
Right.
But did he leave the planet? Did he leave the atmosphere? We saw him take off, but we did not see him achieve space flight. So he might have been back.
Narratively, though, the idea is that we're being told that he's raising ship and he's out of here. So for us to kind of assume that he's kind of gone back to land and has gone back to the site, I think it's a big stretch for us as the audience. I don't think they would go that route. I think it's more interesting that it would be somebody else.
Eric, do you see what you have wrought? Do you see what you have?
Yeah.
God damn it, Eric.
Oh, well, that would have come up. That would have come up anyway. Don't give Eric all
No,
the credit.
we're not. No. Of course, we're going to talk about the end. Well, Eric, I want to know what your theory is. Eric, what do you think that this could be?
So much like Billy Mack, I watched it probably 10, 12 times. And whoever it is, it's not the Mandalorian because they don't have the same armor, the boots. It's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of went, well, it can't be Boba Fett because none of it matches Boba Fett's outfit. But you guys have pointed this out many times. In one of the new books, somebody finds Boba Fett's armor at the place of the Sarlacc. So, so if Boba Fett doesn't have his armor, then clearly he would be dressed somewhat different. So it's possible it's him. Part of me, the fanboy in me, hopes it's him, only because he had a terrible death in, quite frankly, in Return of the Jedi. And is this a way for him to get an honorable death where he gets to fight the Mandalorian and the Mandalorian wins? Do I believe that's what
do we want to see the Mandalorian beat Boba Fett?
I think that could really derail.
I do.
Yeah.
Do you?
If they were going to do that, I'd be okay with it because it'd be a even fight. He didn't get punked and a blind guy hits him in the back and he hits the side of the ship, falls down, and he dies. I never liked that as a kid. I never liked that as a kid.
I don't like it either, but I say keep him dead. Keep him dead at this point.
Yeah.
To bring him back is just
his armor,
he's already dead.
They've already laid their hand, Jimmy. His armor was found, and it wasn't found down in the pit.
Oh, that's a crappy Chuck Wendig book. You think John Favreau gives a crap about anything that hack had to write? Come on.
It's in the...
Yeah, that was some Chuck Wendig crap. We're not going to do that.
Chuck Wendig stuff is about his canon. It's a Beetle Bailey comic strip.
Yeah, he's a hack.
If it's not Boba Fett, then it's the guy with the... Is it the guy with the shoulder cannons? Is it the Moff? I mean, my only thing with the Moff guy is, why the heck are they sending him? Why would he be by himself to go look for her? I mean, he'd go send some lackeys after them. He wouldn't go do that himself.
Well, maybe they just came across.
You know what I mean?
Maybe he just came across her. They picked up some sort of signal that she was generating, from her gear.
All right, I got to throw it out to a little bit here to the chat. The chat saying, a lot of people are saying, hey, it's Filoni. How about Sabine?
No, there's not going to be animation crossover. No animation.
You're never going to find somebody more adamant. You're never going to find anyone more adamant about no animation crossover than Jimmy Mack. Jimmy Mack is full on no crossover of themes or characters from the animated Star Wars universe into the live-action Star Wars.
That's right.
I agree
That's
with
right.
Jimmy for two reasons. One, because I don't think the crossover is going to happen. And two, I also think that he set up Sabine as, at this point, is looking for Ezra. That's her quest, is to bring Ezra back at this stage.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to care about any of this stuff.
Yeah, she has a story.
Yeah.
And it's told
She's with Gandalf
with,
and
cell
she's-
animation.
and they're
She's
going to
with
go
Gandalf.
Yeah.
Dying her-
Ahsoka came back all in white with the staff.
Oh,
It was a
right.
Gandalf
Yeah,
the
Ahsoka the
thing.
White.
And
So
Gandalf
thank
has
you, Jason.
rainbow-colored
It was Ahsoka
hair.
the White.
Gandalf's beard is blue.
She leveled up. She's got bigger fish to fry.
All right. Hey, Eric, we always appreciate your calls. Thanks very much. Let's see. We got, how about Wyoming? What is this? Wow. Yeah, new caller. New caller from Wyoming. Hello, Jacob. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Hello.
Hey, what do you know?
Hey, not much. What do you
Good to
know?
hear from you. We're hearing from Wyoming. We're hearing
nothing.
from
Dave
Utah.
Filoni's just
This
the best,
definitely
isn't
is a Star Wars Western. No, go ahead, caller. I'm sorry. I was cutting you off. I was just saying, Wyoming, Utah, Star Wars Western. Bring it. What do you got to say?
Absolutely, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. That Tusken Raiders scene when they're negotiating, I've actually got it pulled up right now.
Okay.
You guys were talking about it earlier a lot about how it's a lot of like Native American, old Western guy type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is true, and expanding on that, it's also like the old Western guy who respects the natives and the young guy who doesn't give a crap about them, thinks they're stupid, thinks you can't even talk to them.
Right.
And the old guy kind of shows him and takes his stuff and throws it to him. That's a very Western vibe to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, there's no question. You got the young guy that underestimates them, sees them as simple, and then you got the guy that's got the miles on the tires and knows the score and has dealt with them before. What I thought was interesting about the setting here of Tatooine and specifically Mos Eisley is that he shows familiarity with the region. When we saw him choose the planet that he went to in the previous episode, he was looking for, that was a system he was not familiar with. He was looking at the stats, based on the charts, much like we saw Han Solo as he was looking for a safe port in Empire Strikes Back, kind of going through the directory there, the Star Wars GPS of where to land. He didn't do that this time. You didn't see him sitting there going, Tatooine, Mos Eisley, that seems like a nice place. He had a specific reason to go there, and he probably knew he could pick up some work. That's my theory. But,
or it's a good place to hide.
Yeah. Or a good place to hide.
Off the beaten path. People don't want to go there. And so that's a good place for him to hide out. And I only say that because in the last episode, Chapter 4, when he found that planet Sorgon, he basically laid out everything he's looking for in a place to hide, somewhere where he can lay low, maybe earn some money, and not be tracked down by the guild or other bounty hunters who are looking for the asset.
Yeah.
Well, they learned from Rick O'Lee that when your ship is damaged, you go to Tatooine.
That controls the pitch.
Yeah.
You catch on pretty fast.
You learn pretty quick in a creepy voice.
That little droid did it!
You see.
Shield driver.
And then I got some thoughts about.
Yeah, Jacob, you have some thoughts about the guy at the end. You think it's Bill Burr? Oh my God, look at me walking up to this chick.
Yes,
She's
I'm
dead.
thinking it's either Bill Burr or if it's going to be somebody we know, I think the possibility of Cad Bane is out there. We're talking about it in the chat.
No.
I know.
You know
No
what?
way.
I'm
No
going to
way.
say no because I think Cad Bane in live action is going to look silly.
Possibly. But you know what? They've done a great job with the alien species we've seen in episodes thus far. The squid head really looked like
he looked
something
great, but
much more than a latex mask. That thing was alive.
I think
Same
the
thing
Cad
with
Bane is
Platoonians.
going to look really nutty.
Well, yeah, I don't think no way.
They can kind of make it more real life looking though. They can do a little tweaks and whatnot. And
Sure,
Man, I love Cad Bane. I no, don't get me wrong. I freaking love Cad Bane as a character in Clone Wars. And I mean, you talk about a character that came out of the Wild West. I mean, that's exactly where Dave's head was when he came up with this guy. I love him, but I just my disappointment with Cad Bane has always been that I don't see there being any real way to bring him into live action without it. Like the Duros just look very, very fake. And you throw a cowboy hat on
I know
thing.
Poe runs around with them in the comics, right? Did we see any of them in 7 or 8?
What's that?
The Duros?
We do not see a Duros in the sequel trilogy that I'm aware of.
We see no classic aliens.
Yeah, right.
Trilogy. I mean, not a damn one. Hey, Tyler in the chat says, could the guy at the end be Grief Karga? I mean, Carl Weathers. Have we discussed that possibility? That, maybe he's out there tracking the Mando and stumbled across Fennic Shand. Is anyone surprised at the quick death of Fennic Shand?
Yeah.
I was surprised. I thought she was maybe stunned. There was some kind of deeper double crossing going on. I was surprised she was down and out.
Yeah, I was digging her. Ming Na-Wen,
Yeah.
by the way, also a Disney princess, the voice of Mulan.
Oh, okay.
The voice of Mulan in the original film, as well as some of the I think there was a direct-to-video sequel.
And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, thank you, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. So
she made her bones early on, showing up on ER, is where I was first exposed to Ming Na.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she became Ming Na Wen. She just seems like one of those type of actors that is a perfect fit for Star Wars. So I was a little surprised to see her get wiped out so fast. Do we think she is dead? She's definitely. I mean, how many characters? The Mando came back and found her there. She wasn't moving.
Right.
Toro blasted her right in the guts. And then the other character comes across her at the end, and she's showing no signs of life. So I think that's it for Fennic Shand, one and done.
Remember, we talked about her when we found out she was announced at D23 that she was going to be in Mandalorian, and she was like, "Yeah, Dave Filoni told me, it's like a fox, Fennec. This, it's like, yeah, you got like 4 or 5 lines, and then you're pretty much toast." But I mean, the manipulation was good. I mean, it was clear that she worked. She almost got Toro to, turn around there and maybe free her, but he was a couple steps ahead and said, "Well, wait a minute. If look, I can get rid of you, and then I can keep all the reward, all the fortune and glory." Hey, Jacob, thanks very much. Appreciate the call. Let's go and let's see, who do we got here? How about? Oh my gosh, we got somebody from Cleveland. I got to get the other Cleveland guy here. This is somebody I don't know. At least I don't think I know.
Oh, wow. There's somebody in the city of Cleveland you don't know?
Believe it or not. Hey, Cleveland 440, you just said great show. I hope you're talking about us.
No,
hello, Cleveland.
He's definitely listening to Joe Rogan. But we have...
no, Cleveland's not there.
I did want to thank our friend Moof Milker in the chat. Who says, look forward to hearing you guys all week. You guys are my Star Wars news. Thanks again, guys. And
that's so nice.
He tossed us a little 5 spot there for the effort. So that is cool. Great. Wow. Greatly appreciated. Billy Mack wants every penny of that too, by the way. So I'll give it to him. It's all, so Moof Milker, all your donation is going to the BMAC fund, the beer fund for Billy.
That's right. Well, I mean, it is kind of fun. It's kind of fun that you guys do this on Friday nights. It is kind of like a little Star Wars party. Start the weekend off.
Yeah.
Hey, we got another Chris here. Let's talk to Chris. Hello, Chris. I think maybe from Minnesota. You're on the line with Rebel Force Radio. What's going on? Minnesota?
Yeah, you guys are out of luck now.
I know.
You know this guy?
This is going to be a disaster. This is going to be a disaster.
It's a disaster the whole way. You know it. That's the only way I roll.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our good friend Chris Amarim from Minnesota. Chris is
why is he calling like a commoner? Why?
So the last thing we want to do is give him the hotline number because he's a disaster.
We call it Minnesota nice. You realize that, right?
Minnesota.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're darn tootin'.
Oh.
So, you'll put down the Juicy Lucy and let's talk a little bit about the Mandalorian. Yeah, hey there. So,
well, I put down the Juicy Lucy and I'm just sitting heavy on this chair right now. It ain't good.
So Chris, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Amarim is the guy who does all the. Slow down. I got to introduce you. For crying out loud.
You've had your chance. Let me talk.
But I want to give you your props.
I got to put down a little bit on Baby Spice out of Cleveland there. I agree. Kelly is Sigourney Weaver from Alien, hands down.
There's an appearance that is similar, but the characters are vastly different. I think.
No.
I haven't seen big hair like that outside of McInerney in years.
He's talking about Billy Mack. But I'll tell you what, that's a wig that Amy Sedaris is wearing. Could the actual appearance of hers could her appearance have been something of a callback to Ripley's appearance in Alien? Maybe. But
maybe.
That's where the comparisons begin and end with her character and Sigourney Weaver's character.
Well, Ripley was a scientist.
But I do have there's one thing that no one's talked about on the show tonight. There's a design thing that I saw today, just really rattled my mind.
Go for it.
So we got this young rookie that didn't make it very long in the show. He's got a coin. We've seen the Imperial coin. We've seen the Beskar. But yet we saw a coin with a Rebel logo on it and 15 stars around that. Explain that to me.
Wow. You must have been doing some serious freeze framing, my friend, because I never paid any attention to the coin. Don't forget, we also saw Calamari Flan in the episode, too.
We did see Calamari.
Another bit of Star Wars currency. Which, maybe he did, or maybe they melted before he could spend it. But, yes, that Republic coin. Now, of course, the New Republic has taken hold of the galaxy as far as establishing a legitimate government. And that could be currency that we're seeing generated from this new government that's taken over since the Empire has been toppled. But galaxy-wide currency might be a hard thing. It's like Bitcoin, it's kind of a dicey proposition when you're trying to establish it galaxy-wide.
Republic credits were no good here. New Republic even worse.
No good.
What then?
That's like it's completely worthless.
So we're back in Lotto's shop. I get it. All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's worse places we could be. So, Chris, I just wanted to thank you for all the incredible graphic art design you do for Rebel Force Radio on both our website and each and every individual episode. When you guys get episodes of Rebel Force Radio, you'll notice there are wacky Star Wars photo mashups.
Is that this, Chris?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Characters from the film using iPods. It's a trap. But and Chris will be with us in Cleveland for Skywalker Rises in Ohio, and so we're looking forward to getting together with you, Chris, because I know it's going to be a disaster.
For sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
For sure.
The best disaster ever. So thank you so much for calling.
But now let me ask you guys one thing. So this episode was really nice. We go back to Tatooine, we see all that, and that's great. But what happened to the bartender?
He got shot in the head.
What's his name? Wooher or whatever.
Wooher.
He got replaced by a couple of droids.
Oh, he retired. Yeah.
I think he got shot.
I think he drank himself into oblivion is what he did. That's what he did.
Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah,
he got the diabetes.
Tied up in the first episode.
What's that?
John Taffer. They did an episode of Bar Rescue from Mos Eisley, and John Taffer showed up and fired his ass.
You're the worst manager I've ever seen.
Shut it down!
Shut it down!
He should maybe probably accepted a droid or two in his place. It would have been a lot safer for him.
All right, Chris, thanks as always. We got time for one more. Let's get one more on here. Let's see. We didn't really leave much on the table tonight.
I want to thank Quentin for a $2 donation for Puppet Lando, and Mark C for a $5 donation. Message retracted. So
yeah, thank you. People are saying, hey, we should do some shout outs for the super chats. We barely know how to get this thing on YouTube, let alone talking about.
We're getting better at it, though.
We'll
make sure Puppet Lando gets that $2.
Yeah, we're improving. We're gonna buy Puppet Lando a Colt 45 with
that'll get you 2 googly eyes at Michaels.
64 ounces. Well, yeah, 64 ounces.
That's some hot glue gun sticks for Puppet Lando.
All right, hey, we've got Ellie. Ellie's on the line. Hello, Ellie.
Yes.
You're on with Rebel Force Radio. What's going on?
How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good.
It's good to hear from you again. What'd you think of tonight's episode?
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was awesome. I loved all the callbacks.
You do? Yes, right. It's comfort food for the Star Wars fan. It's a big homecoming. Hey, we're home. It's the holidays. We went home for the holidays. We went back to Tatooine. And yeah, there aren't trees you can put lights on, but we could string lights up on the moisture evaporators and just have a good old-fashioned Tatooine Christmas. You, me, Ellie, Swank, Billy Mack, Matt, even Chris from Minnesota. He'll make it a disaster, but it'll be the best Christmas ever.
We'll make it a disaster. And Corinthian.
And Gorindon's there, too. Thank you, Mark C., for $5. Could the hidden character be Cad Bane? And we've talked about that a little bit. And tell Matt Rashid to clean his office. You're on the air for crying out loud.
It's the Christmas boxes. They all came in from Amazon.
Oh, it's that time of year, right?
It's that time of year. This is where we store them. It's all,
the kids will never find them there, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
In that room, Dad's making all the noise. So, Ellie, what else? You love the callbacks. What else did you love about this episode?
I really liked Amy Sedaris and the pit droids. I thought they were a good touch.
Now, me and Billy Mack were wondering before the show, is this the first live-action appearance of pit droids in Star Wars since The Phantom Menace? We reviewed Mos Espa footage from Episode 2, and we can confirm they were there in Episode 2 as well. So this is probably the first time we've seen pit droids in live action since Attack of the Clones.
Wow. Now, was it the Mo Larry Curly pit droids?
Well, Billy was speculating that they are the very same pit droids from Watto's shop. That if somehow
I didn't expect
they migrated to Mos Eisley and ended up in the docking bay.
I mean, if it is, somehow. I'm glad they stayed together and remained a set.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a package deal there.
They were a family.
You don't get the comedy unless you have all three. So.
Right.
And they sell much easier on eBay if you've got all three.
Right, box set.
So they didn't get split up.
So yes, the pit droids for me was an absolute highlight of this episode. If for anything, we're seeing these awesome little prequel nuggets being now transplanted into the original trilogy era, or close to the original trilogy era. So that's another crossover I like seeing too.
Hey, I got to interject here. We've got someone on the chat, Candry, is saying, breaking news, they just released a tease of the body, minus the head of the character at the end of the episode. Sure looks like Cad Bane, blue fingers. Candry, if you're listening, I don't know where you're seeing this, but let us know what you're looking at here, because I'm not aware of any release.
Wait, Cad Bane is blue. Weren't the original Duros, they were green, weren't they?
No, they were like a bluish, blue-gray, blue. I don't know where this image has been released, but I'm scouring the web looking for it right now.
Philly's right. Cad himself was blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was blue.
Yeah, you know who else was blue? Horatio Sands in Chapter 1. He was very blue.
I'm trying to forget. Well, Ellie, hey, anything else you wanted to mention about this particular episode? Any questions that are burning in your brain?
Yeah, one just random question. In the episode when we see the dewback, does that dewback have hair?
Yeah,
it does. Yeah, it's like a bridle. You know,
dewbacks have always had that tuft of hair on top. Ever since 1977, they've always had. That's very consistent with the look of a dewback. You might not notice it so much on the Kenner or Hasbro toys because those things are made completely of plastic. But in real life, the dewbacks do have little tufts of hair. It's kind of cute, you know, so you can pet them, you know, and they would react accordingly. So. Yeah, hair on dewbacks.
You could see it, Ellie, if you look at that. If you look at that promotional still from A New Hope that we were talking about earlier, you do see this, brown or blondish hair along its neck there. So
more hair than Swank actually has on his head. If you notice,
it's actually very short.
He's gone for a very military style cut there. It's, I think he's enlisted. He's enlisted for 2020.
All right, hold on. Now, if you're looking at your screen right now, I'm going to throw it up. This is the photo that they are talking about. This showed up on the Instagram account for Forlom Tzakis, and people are saying so. I don't see here what's the context in terms of. See, just a picture of a gunslinging character from the Clone Wars, which Dave Filoni created and commonly worked for the Hutts, and with fellow bounty hunters, blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right. So what he's doing is suggesting that it could be Cad Bane, which is something that people are sharing here. If we look at Cad Bane from the sort of the shoulders down, we see that he's wearing sort of that duster type coat. Which could look like a cape depending on how things. What about the boots, guys? Matt, what are you thinking here? Are you looking at this and?
You know, I wasn't getting anything from that shot at the end of the episode. I knew it was somebody important, but I was not connecting any dots when that happened. So I'm out.
Yeah, Bill, I'm kind of on the same page as those that are saying that this could be setting up the appearance of Giancarlo Esposito's character as Jimmy does a little dance back there. Let's go. I think that this is setting up. I don't think this is setting up someone from the classic trilogy or the prequels or any kind of canonical character. I think this is setting up Giancarlo. We only have 3 more episodes.
Too, if they throw a character at you like that, I mean, not only is it bold in terms of the special effects and what have you, but I always think this when people suggest, this character should appear in this movie, and you should take this character from the cartoon, or you have to kind of establish that. It seems like you take on a burden as a story writer if you do that. So you can't assume everybody knows who Cad Bane is if you're gonna use him in any real story sense.
Right. You can't just drop him in. He needs to be established within the story.
Yeah. Is he somebody that you can integrate in an economical way into the story?
Economical. That's the thing I think of every time.
Everybody watch the cartoon.
Every time someone suggests things like introducing animated canon into episode 9. The first word that pops into my head is economical. We have to wrap up the entire Skywalker saga with episode 9. How are you going to start introducing new elements that were created in outside film canon? it's a huge burden for the storyteller to take on. And unless they can find a way to seamlessly pull it off, then it's just not going to happen. Now with Cad Bane, as Bill says, if you're going to throw him into The Mandalorian, you cannot assume anyone watching that show has knowledge of his history with the Clone Wars, and you'd have to reestablish the character.
It's almost the flip side of Darth Maul appearing at the end of Solo. You know, we as viewers of the animated series understood that he was still alive, but your average viewer was probably flummoxed. I said flummoxed.
That's a good word. You're another college boy, aren't you?
Yeah, it came out before I knew what was happening. It was really weird.
It's like so weird. Look at it.
It was so weird. You know?
It's like so flummoxed.
But, you know, it was the reverse. It was like, okay, we as close fans made sense to us that he was there, even though we kind of scratched
It's still no.
But to the main audience,
showing up in Solo still makes no sense to me at all.
Wait. Who's showing up? Who's showing up in Solo?
Darth Maul.
Darth Maul.
It still makes no sense?
Nope.
Well, it makes sense to us as
zero sense to me.
No. Hold on.
Even
it makes sense. It makes chronological sense to us as viewers of Clone Wars and Rebels because we know that he's alive. To anybody else, it shouldn't make any sense at all. But it was dissatisfying. It was dissatisfying to everybody in some ways.
I am steeped in Star Wars mythology. And Bill, what was my reaction when we saw Solo opening night? And Darth Maul showed up on the screen?
Well, it was a little something like this. Wait, Maul? What? Wait, Maul is here? Maul. What? I don't even understand.
This was audible.
Happening right now.
At that point, it all of a sudden felt like I was watching a different movie when Darth Maul popped up on me.
Agreed.
Now, maybe it's because I am too weighed down by mythology and I know too much and can't just go with the flow. But I still am struggling with Darth Maul appearing in Solo.
No, I agree with you 100%, but at least you knew he was alive.
Right. No.
Think about all the people who last saw him split in half falling down a shaft.
Exactly. They would have to establish thematically what happened to him.
Right.
And maybe they could do that in a simple way, and maybe they could do it in a very, quick, expository way in a future Solo movie if they were to do that. But I agree with you. That was when I saw that, I was like, well, they opened up a can of worms.
I mean, chronologically,
they're going to have to deal with this somehow.
They finally kill off the character in spring 2017 in Star Wars Rebels. In spring 2018, he's on the silver screen in a Han Solo spinoff. Hearing myself say that makes me want to just check into the loony bin. Actually.
But the reason you're scratching your head is different for the reason for the people who have never seen any of the animated are scratching their heads.
Exactly. That's why it's a dicey situation and economically very difficult to pull off.
Yes. And who cares about Cad Bane if you haven't watched the show?
Right.
Yes. Now, devil's advocate.
Who cares about him?
Well, but he is a compelling character, and he could be reinvented, reincorporated into fresh Star Wars storytelling, and doesn't really require that much of an introduction. We already know bounty hunters do what they do, and we become more familiar with their technology, their tools of the trade, and how they go about their business. So by introducing another bounty hunter, even though he has a history steeped in the animated Star Wars, doesn't really, to me, present so much of a roadblock by just having him show up in The Mandalorian without explanation.
He's not a roadblock.
He's just a cool character.
I don't think he deserves a drum roll, though.
Oh, is this a drum roll?
This is a drum roll.
Matt, that's a great observation. This is a drum roll.
This is a drum roll for somebody that everybody has to give a crap about.
Yeah.
In some way.
Darth Maul.
It's Benicio del Toro. He stuttered his way into the Mandalorian.
Oh my God! All right. You know what? We've gone 2 hours, about a 30-minute episode. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we should we certainly wrap things up here.
Friday night shows.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody for tuning in. If you're joining us via Facebook or YouTube, we appreciate it either way. Or if you're listening on podcast, we especially appreciate that. Lots of ways that you can hang out with us. You can, of course, find details for all of that at rebelforceradio.com. If you're not familiar with Rebel Force Radio, we are a weekly podcast. Not only do we talk about The Mandalorian, we talk about all things and everything Star Wars on the weekly Rebel Force Radio. So go ahead and check us out, rebelforceradio.com. Big thanks to our pal Matt Rashid for joining us. Matt, thanks for hanging with us tonight.
Thank you, guys.
So any final thoughts here about not just this episode, but Mandalorian in general? We're more than halfway through. We've got 3 more episodes. What are you hoping to see before this series wraps up? It's still out there.
I mean, I think that this episode you were either all in or all out, if you were, depending on how you landed with the Tatooine theme. And I think if the other shows of Filoni are any guide, he starts small and then he'll end big at the last episode, teasing what's to come. So I'm hoping that he will open us up to a larger world in the next few episodes, or at least the last episode.
Awesome. Hey, Matt, thanks for everything, and seriously, thanks for all your support over the years.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You're always welcome here with us. Jimmy Mac, Billy Mac, the Mac brothers, what say you? Chapter 5, 3 more to go. Bill, based on the fact that you and I, we've sort of conflated the series that we're watching with some of the trailers and the other footage. We already thought we saw the stormtrooper helmets on the pikes.
Yeah.
What else is there left to see to where you're going to be able to say, all right, season 1, big success here, The Mandalorian?
Well, oh gosh, I don't know what would make it successful. Of course, we have yet to see the Mandalorian's face. I do ask myself whether or not I even want to see it, because I am enjoying just the character that they've established so far. How much would that change it, huh? I mean, you got to consider that. I don't know. I don't know what the show will be like if he's walking around without his helmet half the time.
Yeah.
Is that what we want?
Well, I think that's only the natural progression of the way the show is going to be going in. I think sooner or later,
yeah,
yeah.
But that's the nice. They're building up some very nice mysteries, and they're keeping us guessing. This show.
Well, who's he gonna reveal himself to first? I think it's gonna be Baby Yoda. And I'm not saying that to be funny.
I
think the first one to see him without his helmet is going to be Baby Yoda.
That's as good a guess as
like
any.
that.
I was thinking of the woman he met last week. That seems like an obvious one.
Yeah,
but maybe not.
Something you guys don't see coming is when he takes the helmet off. It's going to be Sebastian Shaw underneath it.
Wow.
And Dave Prowse is going to be pissed.
Still.
Is he gonna have his eyebrows?
On that note, Jimmy Mac, final thoughts. Chapter 5, The Gunslinger.
You can put your fan service up your ass. This was awesome. If you don't appreciate this homecoming to Mos Eisley after 42 years since the last time we left that locale, if you can't appreciate this, then I really question your integrity as a Star Wars fan. I really, really do. If you can't find some comfort food in this is like a big bowl of Star Wars chicken soup. Slurp it up! Slurp it up! And if you don't ask for seconds, then I'm a better fan than you are. What do you think about that? Everyone gets all upset. Oh, you can't say real fan.
You're a gatekeeper.
You can't be a gatekeeper. Well, God damn it, I'm a gatekeeper right now. We're in
Utini, Jimmy.
Eisley.
Utini.
Mos Eisley. This is like going back to the promised land. This is Mecca for Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
So enjoy it. And you know what? And they brought it back, and they didn't pander to us. They didn't do cutesy stuff. It was just there.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they said it was Tatooine. Instead of let's give them like a Tatooine type planet. They owned it. They're like, not only is this Tatooine, this is Mos Eisley.
You get the voice on the radio control, the air traffic controller says Mos Eisley Point.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, bring it. And I believe that voice was Steve Blum, who did
Zeb?
The Zeb character.
Very
I believe
cool.
that was his voice. But so obviously the guy who is extremely nostalgic about Star Wars, the original Star Wars from 77 and New Hope, whatever you want to call it. I call it the Wars. And it was great to go back there, go back to Mos Eisley. And kind of refreshing not to see any Greedos around the place, you know. It seemed like the Greedos were taking over at certain times. They
Awfully
cleaned it up.
green in here, folks.
The droids have taken over and they cleaned out the Greedos. But it was just, to me, it was just one of those moments. I was making a lot of noise in the room by myself as these elements began to become obvious as we're watching this episode. I thought it was wonderful. It's just like going back to the sacred pools of, it's like going back to the womb. My God.
It was great. It was great. Bill said earlier it was like, fist pumps all around, and it was awesome. All right.
For no reason, I just yelled at the top of my lungs, Biggs! And I knew he wasn't going to be in the episode.
He does that anyway.
Most of the time.
That's not uncommon.
By the way, Jim, you'll appreciate several folks in the chat have speculated mystery character at the end of the episode, Kitster.
I didn't want to.
That's the right planet.
Spoilers.
Kitster. All right.
Also, speaking of the chat, thank you, Mark C, for $5, who says, do you remember the Unseen Bounty Hunter showdown Filoni showed at Celebration? Could we see it in live action? Ooh. That was a showdown between Boba Fett and Cad Bane. I believe that's what he's referring to. And Moof Milker again checking in says, did that first ship look like a Naboo starfighter, the one that was pursuing the Mando in the Razor Crest during the opening sequence dogfight? Was that a Naboo ship? Well, I don't think so. I don't think
so.
No,
but it kind of resembled one, yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for being so awesome in the live chat, and you guys are contributors to this show as well. So thank you for co-hosting with us, and Matt and Billy and Jason, of course. You did an amazing job moderating the conversation, and I just can't wait till next week.
Next week.
That's what this show brings out of me. That's the response this show brings out of me.
Episode 6. We're chapter 6. We're looking forward to it. We'll see you next time. Love you all so much. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.